Well, the Republican Party of Iowa has been great. It's been a pleasure working with them. Their criteria that they voted out of their state committee, we met it. We then ran into opposition from their partner in the debate, Fox News, about national polling. Now, we've had trouble, for whatever reason, not getting listed on national polls. So the ones that we could cobble together, we submitted them to them. They did not think that they met their criteria. So what's done is done. I'm looking forward to Saturday. We're treating it as an introduction to the voters of Iowa. And hopefully we can hear from some people, meet some people, and see if they respond to the message.
And you decided fairly late to jump in. What made you decide to do that?
Well, there were a lot of candidates that wound up not doing it. Obviously, people like Governor Huckabee. You did not have Governor Daniels or Governor Barber decide to run. And I believe that two of the issues that are near and dear to my heart and the hearts of many Americans are not being addressed. The first is that we have to fundamentally restructure the failed Wall Street banks to get credit flowing again in the United States, because that'll be the basis of making sure that we have an economy that can grow when it gets into the hands of the entrepreneurs and the innovators and workers. Secondly, the recognition of communist China as a strategic threat, rival model of governance, because that's how they treat us, and it's about time we started reciprocating.
There isn't going to be any for you. You've got 25 years to make your own arrangements, but we just don't have the money. Shouldn't we be saying that now?
No, I don't think we have to. That's part of the reason I'm introducing the legislation, although, Simon, I do agree with you. Look, I'm Generation X, on the front edge of it, granted, but people younger than me believe they're never going to see it. But that doesn't mean that the system has to be completely discarded. It just has to be restructured for the 21st century, which, again, would allow people to get their benefits up front over a period of time so they could invest it, they could save it, and they would be able to help subsidize their retirement. One of the things that we, as you rightly point out, with the fiscal mess that we're in, is we have to restructure government for the 21st century. That means changing the root premises of the welfare state, which we're seeing implode all around us, and as the downgrade proved. Because everything in your life is leading you back to self-government. It's leading you back to making your own decisions, the communications revolution. I mean, look, if you can talk on a BlackBerry around the world or purchase a good or service or find your own source of information on the internet, it's insane to continue to try to make people who are self-reliant dependent on government and letting a bureaucrat make those decisions.
Is government the answer, or is government the problem?
I think responsible government that leads and encourages self-government and the pursuit of happiness within a free economy is the way to go. I do not believe in anarchy. I'm not a libertarian. I think I'm more of an Edmund Burke, Reagan Catholic Republican.
We're going to learn how to speak Democrat today. Often we heard the word change, which translates into the 1970s. As used in a sentence, Democrats will bring you change. Translation, Democrats will bring you the 1970s. Government means socialism. Democrats support proactive government. Translation, Democrats support proactive socialism. The rich means you. For example, Democrats will only tax the rich. Translation, Democrats will only tax you. Ouch. End means lose. Democrats will end the Iraq War. Translation, Democrats will lose the Iraq War. I hope this exercise has been instructive.
This is the smartest candidate you're going to meet.
Oh, it's a low bar, but thank you for that.
Everybody I ask about you says you're a very smart man, and we should pay more attention to you than the nation is paying to you right now.
Well, that's really up to me. I disagree with that. I think everybody's smart. Look, I was homely and I read a lot in high school. That's the only reason that people say that. But I think that what you have to do as a candidate is get the message out and see if people respond to it. I'm going to try to do that. Sometimes you use humor to make a point. Sometimes the subject matter you just can't, and it's not appropriate. In the final analysis, you try to make those judgments. And like one time I went to the House floor and we were discussing one of the budget issues. And it was morning hour, and everybody tends to stay on their talking points. So as I was waiting my turn in line, I decided that I would just do something that I thought was very normal for somebody my age or maybe younger. I decided to throw some Led Zeppelin song titles into the floor remarks. And it seemed to get a lot of people's attention, and I think it brought their minds around to looking at the Republican perspective in a way that they might not have looked at it before if they'd have just heard the talking points.
Do you remember some of the ones you used?
Oh, I used cashmere, although I used it in the context of a sweater. I know it's a place when Zeppelin wrote it. I mean, I don't know if I used dazed and confused, but that's always appropriate for Washington. I certainly didn't use the Lemon song at any point in time.
It does seem that so many politicians, particularly once they get to Washington, D.C., just change.
Well, I've seen the polling data that says Congress has a 6% approval rating, and my first response was that the poll had a margin of error of 6%. But the reality is, every individual is different, but the collective in Congress, it just tends to be as if you could put some really good musicians in a band and it turns out to be a flock of seagulls instead. That sometimes the collective result is less than the individual wholes. And what you have is you have districts across the country that send them there. Now, look, I reject the Washington mindset. I'm from Detroit. We're very practical people.
Yep.
I can't stand the fact that they think that they're somehow Hollywood for ugly people. And being an ugly person, I can say that. But it's not Hollywood. It's where you go serve your sovereign citizens. I'm a servant, and one day I'll get a promotion back to the status of sovereign citizen. And if you remember who you work for, you'll do your job and you won't embarrass people. You try to make things a little better. That's the job.
Most people up there just don't behave that way.
Well, I think that what you're seeing, and I'd like to point out that I know that Winterset is the birthplace of John Wayne, is that
I gotta laugh.
I have been in Iowa.
There you go.
Is that you're seeing a very challenging period of time for the country. This is not an ordinary time, as has been pointed out. We have generational crises. We have deeply held beliefs. I think you're seeing the implosion and the changes within government itself, within society, that are akin to the types of challenges the United States faced going into the 20th century. When we went into industrialized economy, we're going into a globalized economy. You're seeing the changes in the government, changes in the way people live, that are causing great upset, great chaos. And so when you see people who have great differences arguing over the issues of the day, you can say to yourself that they're not getting anything done or that they're horrible people. But in the end, we have peaceful revolutions every 2 years. You've seen great changes in 06, great changes in 08, great changes in 10, and you will continue to see it until the people are satisfied their representatives do what they're supposed to do.
Hi, Mark. You're on the Simon Conway Show, and the Congressman can hear every word you're saying.
Quick question, and then I'll get off and he can answer it. How does he feel about congressional earmarks, and maybe because of the current budget, it's time to get rid of them?
Okay, all right.
That's a very good question. House Republicans abolished earmarks when we came to the majority. Individuals like myself abolished them prior to that ban. And you're absolutely right, as we understand. You cannot have earmarks. It's one way it was an abusive process, and it's one of the wasteful spending items that has to go, and it did under the new majority.
Everybody wants to know why Congress doesn't take a pay cut.
We've frozen congressional pay at this point in time, and I think that was the appropriate thing to do. We did it well before this latest problem with the downgrade, and I think that it's something we're going to continue to hold in place, if not reduce in the future, and I think it's something that will be on the table as we go into the quote-unquote super committee when they put their capes and cowls on and start to come up with ways to cut the federal budget so we can get our downgrade upgraded.
Do you think the super committee is constitutional?
Oh, I think it is. It's a committee of Congress. Congress can create the committees that it wants. It still comes back to the members of the House, members of the Senate for a vote. It still has to be enacted into law the same way. Approval of majority of both chambers and go to the president for his signature. In fact, one of the things that we saw under the Democratic majority was major bills being essentially drafted by their leadership as opposed to going through the committee process. And so rather than have this type of budget cutting and reform being done by the leadership in the House or by the leadership in the Senate, to set up a committee is actually going to be a way to get more members to look at it than has been done in the recent past.
So why are people referring to it as a super Congress?
I don't know. People refer to it as a super committee. People refer to it as anything. To me, it has to pass both the Senate and the House as a matter of a majoritarian vote, and then it has to go to the president for his signature. So the result is the same. The process is the same. Now, like so many people, we all wish that it had not come to the point and that the ordinary course of committee business in Congress had come to be enough to solve the problem. But that's not where we find ourselves at present, and the urgency of actually meeting those targets and exceeding them, treating them as a floor for cuts rather than a ceiling, I think will be facilitated by this process. And
are you happy with the makeup of this committee, at least on the Republican side?
It doesn't matter if I'm happy or not. I think we have good people there that'll put the best interest of the country forward.
Well, I see we don't allow political answers in here, so I'm going to ask you again. Are you happy with the makeup of that committee from a GOP point of view?
Well, no, Simon. The politician would answer all about himself and tell you how happy he is, usually when looking in the mirror. Again, I'm from Detroit. We deal with what the reality is, and we try to make the best of it.
Okay. And now for the third time, because you still haven't actually answered the question, are you happy with the makeup of that committee from a GOP point of view?
Yeah, the committee has fine members on it. From the GOP point of view, people like Jeb Hensarling, we have Dave Camp and Fred Upton from Michigan on the House side.
Okay.
I couldn't ask for more coming from the Great Lakes state. They're very good fiscal conservatives.
All right. Hi, Steve. You're on the Simon Conway Show and with the Congressman.
Hi, Simon. I appreciate your show. Why doesn't Congress have to live with the Social Security system that the rest of us out here in the cheap seats do? And why don't they have to participate in the same health plan if this Obamacare mess goes forward? Why wouldn't they have to participate in that? I'll hang up and I'll listen to what you say.
So basically, let's just narrow that down. Why does Congress have a different health care plan that is wonderful than the rest of us?
The House Republicans, during the passage of Obamacare, continually put forward votes to make Congress have to live under Obamacare. The Democratic majority at the time continually rejected them. We are committed to repealing Obamacare. We are committed to going towards supply-side health care, patient-centered empowerment, so that the supply of health care can grow. So I think the caller has an absolutely proper point. It was a point that we put forward as House Republicans when in the minority, and unfortunately the Democrats thought that Obamacare was good enough for you but not for them.
Do you think all laws passed by Congress should have to apply to Congress?
Oh, absolutely. Congress are the servants of the American people, not the masters of the American people. And if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for everybody else. In fact, the problem should be passing laws that are good for the entire United States, rather than having situations like Obamacare where it's clearly a case of the servant thinking that they run the place.
The Republicans seem to cave a lot. We need people to stand up. Any comment on that, Congressman?
Well, I don't think the Republicans have caved. I think what you've seen, especially out of the Tea Party members that came in, we've had an injection of fresh blood, fresh ideas to help get the majority here. They're making their presence felt. They're being involved in the process, and I think that it's been very healthy both for the party and, more importantly, for the country. And I think you will continue to see that. I think that especially if you're worried about what the super committee, quote unquote, is going to do, again, the House members that are on there are not going to capitulate, raise taxes, make it harder for this American economy to recover. We understand the pain that working people are going through, and we intend to help let them grow this economy, and they're virtuous, industrious geniuses they always have.
When are we going to see someone come forward and put down term limit requests and get it passed and not tie 3 million other little quirky things that everybody wants? Just a one-line thing. Term limit this many years. I'll turn off my phone and listen. I appreciate the answer.
Okay, so that's a term limit question. Do you think we should have term limits now?
No, I think the voters should be able to, and have always been able to, vote out the people that they want. We're elected by district, we're elected by state to represent community of interest, and they should decide it.
But we do have plenty of term limits around the country. I mean, in D.C. we got the president, for example.
Well, I think that the position and the constitutional amendment that was required to limit the ability of someone to use the power of that to continually get reelected was necessary. It's an individual as opposed to the collective entity. And I come from Michigan where we have term limits, and what we've seen, I've never been in a situation where I've been anywhere long enough under Michigan term limits to be term limited. But I'll tell you, we've seen the rise of the permanent bureaucracy, which is not term limited. We've seen the rise of the lobbyists, which are not term limited. And we've seen their sway continue to go. We've also seen individuals who get elected to something start running for leadership and raising PAC money immediately right off the bat. We've seen people start running for other offices, people running against each other from the same party in potential primaries. California has them. Michigan has them. I don't know that you'd wish to trade your economic state with those term-limited governmented legislatures.
So you're not a fan, clearly.
I've defeated incumbents from my own party. I've defeated incumbents from the Democratic Party. I think that the voters, in their ability and their interest, are able to engage in a peaceful revolution at the ballot box every 2 years.
If Sarah Palin looked like Janet Rito, would she still be the mayor of Wasilla?
Do candidates need to be physically attractive, Congressman?
Clearly not, as I prove myself.
There you go. How do people connect with you, sir?
You can go to our website, McCotter2012.com. That's McCotter2012.com. It's a pedestrian name, but it's most functional.
You are going to be doing something in regards to the debate. Do you want to tell us what that is? We've got about a minute left.
Yes. Well, first thing I'm going to do is take my kids into the state fair and eat a pork chop on a stick.
Okay.
Send my cardiologist in to arrest himself, and then I'm going to be watching the debate, live streaming it from our website. That's McCotter2012.com.
Okay, all right. And are you going to plan a response on YouTube?
We're going to be answering the questions, taking questions from people, and just trying to shed some light on a debate that I wished I'd participated in, but can't, so you make the best of it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for stopping by the Crystal Studio here at the Iowa State Fair.